Hello, this is Bronwyn Ailey, Local Food Systems and Small Farms Educator for the University of Illinois Extension. And I'm bringing you my 9th installment of the video log I call Local Food Happenings at Dixon Springs. Today is Friday, May the 29th, and so we'll just give you an update on the progress of different crops that we've got going in our different high tunnels this week. It has been a couple of weeks since I gave you a picture or video, a walkthrough of our strawberries in the vertical stacks, and I believe in the last couple of weeks they have definitely darkened up more, and overall leaf size is larger. We're seeing new flushes of flowers, small green fruit. One thing that did note is if you remember from some of the first videos we posted that we have 3 different substrates that we're looking at in these stacks. One substrate would be 100% perlite, which would be this stack. And then we have a 50-50 blend of perlite and cocoa coir, which we would see in this stack. And then the third substrate would be 100% cocoa coir. And we are noticing that the blends with cocoa coir, we see some yellowing on the leaves here, as compared to this stack that is 100% perlite, and we don't see that yellowing. We did collect pH and EC readings from the effluent from each of these stacks, seeing if there was a difference in the amount of nutrients that were flowing through based on the substrate, but all 3 EC readings and pHs were the same. It could just be that this cocoa coir is holding more moisture in these. We will see how this affects yield as well, as we are collecting yield data from these. But that's an update on our strawberries for this week. And now as we move over to our hydroponic tomatoes and peppers, this row that we're looking at would be our hydroponic tomatoes that are either a cherry or a grape style, a smaller fruited than a traditional red slicing or a beefsteak type fruit. And you can see these are starting to ripen up, some of them. And we have these with 1 plant per Dutch bucket. We'll pan over slowly here to the peppers. You can see these are starting to set some fruit, size some fruit, and set more flowers. We have 2 plants per bucket with these. And as we walk down to the final planting of hydroponic tomatoes in this tunnel, in this row, these would be varieties that would be more traditional greenhouse or high tunnel specific tomatoes. And you can see we're sizing the first fruit clusters. Haven't seen any ripening on these yet, and first clusters are sizing, and second clusters are setting small green fruit. So we're progressing with these tomatoes as well. Pan down here. This one variety, I believe this variety is Cayman, and it's like those first clusters are setting, and really nice first clusters on this variety. So that is where we are at this week with the hydroponic tomatoes and peppers. And now I've moved over to the 2 cucumber rows in the hydroponic tunnel, and we began harvesting towards the end of last week, so we've had about a full week of harvest, and this is an example. We have some fruit left on here. Probably need to come in this afternoon and take those off. As we're setting, as you see, these fruit that are just about to harvest size. These same plants are also setting flowers and other small fruit as they're moving up growing up the trellis line. And so we will be trying to harvest every day or every other day on these. You can see there the cucumbers are really growing nicely in here. Appreciating the semi-warm temperatures, more summer-like temperatures that we've had this past week, although it's been continuing to be cloudy and rainy on and off. We're expecting to have a cool front come through this weekend, mostly sunny skies though, and I think by the middle of next week we should be getting close in the mid to upper 80s again. I am going to pan up to the ceiling. One of the things that we accomplished this week was putting the shade cloth on over this tunnel. From temperature readings that we've taken in the past, this shade cloth, which I believe is a 50% shade cloth, can drop the temperature in here by about 10 degrees. When we've put this on before, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, on a sunny day, it was running about 103 degrees in here, and as soon as the shade cloth went on, it dropped to 93. So it does provide some cooling effect in this tunnel. We have it stretched over the outside of the plastic. There are grommets placed along the edge, spaced along the edge. We use twine and we tie it off to the outside of the hip board. We have screw eyes out on the outside edge that we can kind of run a zigzag line cord through and attach it down on each side on the outside of the tunnel. We'll pan over here, look at this edge. In this picture you can see from the outside edge it running the length of the tunnel. And so traditionally we do get this on around June the 1st each year, so we're right in time with getting the row cover in place on the hydroponic tunnel for this season. And now I've moved over to the other tunnel where we can look at our tomatoes and peppers grown in the in-ground raised beds in our second tunnel. And see a whole lot of flowers flushing on the tops of these, all across all of these varieties. That's these flowers are flushed out just this week. And we have not removed any more plants because of the tomato pith necrosis disease that we have. We had removed 12 out of 156 plants. We have left other plants in here that are suffering from the disease but have not wilted down. As an example, we look at this plant and we can see some symptoms on the petioles here. We see the adventitious roots in the stem, and if we look in further we can see more dark necrotic lesions on the stem. But the plant is not completely wilted down. It's still producing new flowers, so we're going to let this go and see if it can come out of it. The one beside it here is another example. We're seeing some yellowing of the leaves at the bottom, which is again another symptom of the tomato pith necrosis. But the plant is still wanting to try to actively grow, and so we're going to leave these in and see what happens with the rest of them. We've not added any additional fertilizer through the drip irrigation to this planting. Trying to give these plants time to absorb the nitrogen that we've put down, and also waiting for some sunny days. It's been warmer, but we still had intermittent cloudy days, and today it's cloudy. A rain shower just came through, so our humidity levels are still remaining high, and with these cool temperatures coming this weekend, we're still going to have cool nighttime temperatures, although we will have some sunny days, so I think that will do wonders for this planting as well. And I am going to pan over to this outside row. For those that have watched the previous video logs, I was referring to this as our mystery row, where tomatoes were planted in this row that were part of the replicated determinate tomato variety trial, and 90% of the tomatoes that had been planted in this row did not grow and were suffering. We weren't sure what was going on. We decided to remove those plants, and we have replaced it with, we had extra plants of a variety called Red Deuce. We just had extra ones in the greenhouse, so we wanted to see if we replanted, if the same effect would occur, or if we would see something different. And these plants are looking really well. They're greening up, they're responding, they're growing. So I'm glad to see that we have a good response with these later planted tomatoes. At the far end of this tunnel, at the far end of this row, the few plants of the different varieties that had started to catch on and were starting to grow from the first round of planting, we moved those and put them all together, because as you can see, these new transplants that have been in the ground about 10 days or so, we may be getting close to 2 weeks, compared to these plants that had been set out the first week of April. They're in different stages of their growth, and so we wanted to put all of those plants together. So we moved them down, and we have them staked, and they have 2 strings on them. Probably the first of next week we'll get the first string on these newly planted transplants in this row. But you can see the few plants that from the April 3rd planting, even though they are finally taking off, they're still well behind the rest of the plants that were planted that same day. But they do look much better and look like they are now actively growing. This is, right here you can see another couple of plants that are suffering from the tomato pith necrosis and starting to wilt pretty hard. We may end up having to take one of these plants out. But we still have first cluster fruit sizing, but I'm glad to see the flush of flowers on the top of all of these now. We will be continuing to make a fungicide application weekly as preventative measure to hopefully ward off any botrytis, gray mold that we might have in this planting. We did have that last year, and so we're going to be more preventative with that situation this year. And finally, we'll take a quick look at our peppers on this spacing study. They're again catching on and growing. We've driven stakes to we'll be putting twine in here to help hold these plants in place. We'll just kind of make a cage around them, around the whole plot. Just kind of hold them up and keep them from falling over. And we have anywhere from small green fruit to flowering on the bell peppers. We'll pan over. In our outside row, we like to put different cut flowers in, and so some of those have started to flower for us this week. So we'll kind of take a look at the different colors that are coming on. And that will be it for this week's update on the fruit and vegetable crops being grown at Dixon Springs in the high tunnels. And with that, everyone, be well, be kind, stay safe.